I'm not fucking serving you. And I was like, whoa. And all these coworkers, like, they pulled me back and they were like trying to be like, whoa, let's get this guy. This is a fucking. And like from my point of view, I was dead drunk. I was like, it was like that scene from Grease where like Travolta's friends are like tugging on his shirt, like, tell me more, tell me more. And I'm like, guys, I got this. And I went back up to the bar, and she had her back turned to me, and she's like, she was not paying attention to me. I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna reach over. She had like a little blonde ponytail. I'm gonna reach over, and I'm just gonna go, ting, ting, ting. She's gonna turn around and say like, oh, and smile, right? And I'm gonna be like, me again. She's like, this fucking hot-ass guy. It's gonna be so fun. I'm like, what do you want? I'm gonna get in trouble. Right? She's like, what do you want, like a drink? And I'm like, yeah, just take a drink. And so I proceeded to, but that was like short, cute Sean, and I was like more mice and men Lenny. So when I reached over to her and I accidentally pulled her to the ground, and she slipped, and I was like, whoa, that was not expected. So the bar runs this way. And I was like, I immediately knew that I was like, oh fuck, this did not happen as I intended. When she fell, she was like, oh, I got my neck. I'm like, the bouncers now are making their way through the crowd towards me. The bar is right here. The exit is right where that exit is. And I was just like, oh, here's the second worst idea of my night. I'm gonna jump up on the bar, run down the bar, tiptoeing over people's glasses, eluding the band, jump off at the end, turn to my coworkers and say, so long! And one of my coworkers would be so fun, they'd be laughing, cheering, be like, what was that guy? So I was just like, oh, so the bouncer's coming, and I'm like, got it. I'm gonna put my leg up. You know how hard it is to put your leg up on a bar? I ended up just like sweet kicking off like 10 drinks into my coworkers' laps. And I'm like, no, second time. Like 20 drinks. 20 drinks. So it's like, oh fuck. Then the long arm of the law came and like grabbed me, and I was like, oh no. And no one knew what I was doing. No one knew like what was going on. I'm like, it just looked like I was just like, oh, what? I can't drink again? And then like, body kick off those drinks. And then I was like dragged out, you know, classic. That's what happens in every. I told that joke a couple of nights ago, and I split my pants. And then I went to another place and did a whole nother set. And then I came home, I'm like, oh, I split my pants. I got some of that. So I heard that one. And another time, I went to a New Year's Eve party. And let me just preface this story by saying the night was New Year's Eve, and I spent it sleeping under a blanket in the backseat of a car. So obviously you guys feel bad for me, I know. I know. But, so I'm at this party, I'm in Rutgers, I don't know anybody at this party, I'm like asked from a buddy. And I go there, and like a group of people like talk to me for like 2 seconds, and I get dead drunk, and I'm like, 1 sec, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna assume nothing's gonna change. And I go to the bathroom, and while I am peeing, I hear like that rustle at the door, and I'm like, you know, like, oh, 1 second, you know, and you have to do that. So sorry. And then all of a sudden I heard like a second rustle at the door, and I'm like, oh fuck. So I do this, where I put my leg out and block the door, right? And you should feel like a hard surface, the door, but instead I felt like a gelatinous-esque, like squishy thing. And I was like, oh shit, the call is coming from inside the house. I turned around and there was a woman in there, this big, fat woman. And she had been down, she had been like in the outskirts of like this like party that and she was standing there like all sexy. Like, and she was just like, I didn't know that, but she was just like, oh, as soon as he steps in, I'm gonna French the shit out of him. So I was standing there and I'm like, oh, you have to go too? I don't know how she got in there. She also like slinked in the door. I was like, whew. She became like, she turns this way, she's like a piece of paper. So all of a sudden I was like, oh fuck. So I turn around and I'm thinking this girl has to go to the bathroom. And I turn and I'm like, oh, you're next. Or whatever, and she slams me against the wall. Boom. He throws my hands up. This is gonna get serious. Throws my hands up and hits me against the wall. Both hands. Right? And I'm like this. I'm like, oh God, no! You can just go. You can just go. I'm not fighting for you. And all of a sudden, she goes in for a kiss, and like I rip my hand away and I put it on her forehead like this. And she's still going in, and this has all happened in a split second. And I thought back to like this quote, like Mike Tyson. You know, he was my famous poet. And, you know, everybody's got a game plan until you get punched in the face. So I was like, win, and I popped her. Trust me, I was just as surprised as everybody else. I was just as surprised. I'm like, whoa. Where did that come from, Sean? It didn't hurt her. She like kind of like she like snarled back, right? Like she was gonna make a second charge. Then we were gonna fight. Initially she was gonna kiss me. Then second time. But she rocked back and her knees hit the tub. And she like went crashing back and she like reached like that desperate reach. And I was like, yeah, right, right. She ripped the shower and she fucking fell. She beat it. She hit her head. She was knocked out cold. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I'm like, close the door. I was like, oh shit, like, she's gonna be sleeping in there for a while. So I was like, I came out of the bathroom and I kind of gave myself a look over like that kind of like look where you look at your hands and wonder what kind of monster you are. And I'm like, I'm a terrible monster because I went back downstairs and rejoined that people. I'm like, hey, what did I miss? And they're like, nothing. Did you see Jamie? I'm like, haven't seen her. And then all of a sudden there was a guy, of course, word got around that there was a lunatic punching women. And they're like, all of a sudden I need to leave the party before some guy fucking ends me. So I'm like, fine, I'll go hide in my car. Fine. See, I'm glad you guys laughed because they told me, don't do jokes where you like punch and hit women. And I'm like, this is Asbury. Right? On the Asbury flag, there's a guy putting his hands on a woman. I'm like, you don't know this crowd. Not all my social cues. They don't all end in me physically hurting somebody. One other time, I was living in my uncle's house in the suburbs, and I woke up really early in the morning and I couldn't go back to sleep. So what does every delinquent do? And my uncle has 2 little kids. Go downstairs and smoke a joint on the side of his house, right before anyone gets up, because little kids get up early. So I was like, I'm just gonna like go downstairs, and I'm sitting there, I'm on the side of his house smoking a joint, and they live like in a nice suburban neighborhood, green grass, everything I'm just not used to. And I kind of got caught up in the moment, and I'm like, smelling the grass, I see people running by, it just looks all so good. I'm like, this is what life's about. And then you know what? I'm like, you know what? You like get in the morning, it's like a beautiful morning. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for a fucking run. Right? I'm gonna go for a run. So I was just like, fuck it. I'm gonna go for a run because you know what? When you're running, the best thing you can do is run in the morning because that's like the smuggiest time you can do it. Like that is the best. So I'm like, I'm gonna run and I go, oh, there's a Dunkin' Donuts on the other side of town. I'm gonna run to the Dunkin' Donuts. Get Dunkin' Donuts from my little cousins, bring them back as proof, and then when they wake up, be like, oh, who got these Dunkin' Donuts? I'm like, oh, I did. I was out exercising this morning. And they're like, you want any? I'm like, no, they're for you, you little fat shit. I don't eat this shit. So I'm like, boom, hit the streets. Right? Best part about it, running in the morning, is saying good morning to other runners. Morning. You remind other people that you're running. Morning. Yeah, morning. So I'm out there and I'm running, right? And I'm running, and all of a sudden, like, all these people's reactions weren't really what I was expecting. Like the other, like, morning, morning. These people were more like, one guy crossed the street away from me. Another guy stepped in front of his children. And another guy, like, kind of like gave like that not sure. Not, like, he just was like kind of like lurking, like not sure. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh. You don't understand how important workout clothes are until you're working out in not workout clothes. Because not only do they function, they also signal to people that you are working out. And when I went down to smoke that joint earlier, I was dressed in jeans and a dress shirt. So I looked like some maniac that just escaped from somewhere that was sprinting the streets of this really nice suburban area. So people were like, oh God, this guy was like looking like, should I make a citizen's arrest? Like, just like tackle me and hope somebody comes behind. But there was nobody coming behind. So I picked up on the social cue and I started walking, and I went to D&D, and I picked up my Munchkin box, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna walk home, right? I don't want to scare anybody else. So I walked home, and I turned the corner back to how I have to go back, and since I have been gone, there is a fold-out table. Some people about 20 yards away, fold-out table, about 6 or 7 people, some clipboards, some cups of coffee, stoned as the devil. And I'm like, right, everyone's thinking the same thing. Crazy religious group. Right? And I'm like, oh shit, it's one of these crazy religious groups that try and like sign me up. You have a moment for Jesus, and like, not one of my eyes are maroon. I go. So I was like, oh shit. So I'm like 20 yards away, and I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do? I'm like, I gotta pass by them. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I cannot go by them. And 15 yards away, the guy, one of the guys from the show, from the show, starts, he starts going like this. Oh, here we go, this is what we've been waiting for. And starts clapping. And I'm like, oh, fuck. This can't be happening. So all of a sudden I get about 10 yards away, and everybody, all 7 people, start whooping it up, cheering. Can you guys cheer just for 2 seconds? Right? Just imagine that, like, 7 people. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh God. But it's not every day that like people clap for me like that. So I was like, I'm taking it a little bit. Right? So all of a sudden I was just like, oh, I'm like trying to like hold my smile and I'm not part of it. And all of a sudden like they're fucking whooping it up so bad. 5 yards away I get, and I break down and I start basking in this. I'm just like, I'm taking it all in, right? So all of a sudden, I'm like, fine, where do I sign up? And I reach for the guy's like little pad, right? And he pulls back, like this, like. And at that exact moment, like 20 bicycles fell off my back. And I was like, oh, this isn't a religious group. It's a fucking bicycle finish line. Like, it was a bike race. And all of a sudden these people were like, they had a good laugh at my expense. And I was embarrassed. Right? If you saw a bird's eye view of what happened to me that morning, you would have saw an adult sneak out of a house, smoke pot, sprint from the house in jeans, scare a neighborhood, go, where's he going? Oh, Dunkin' Donuts? That's where he's sprinting to? Pick up a crave case, whatever it is, hesitantly walk up to the crowd of people, and then start hamming it up. And then turned away and sadly walked away with his crave case. But I learned something that day. You know, I walked away and I was embarrassed, but I learned something, and honestly, it says a lot about. It says